Hey guys, I just took a shower obviously, and I wanted to just get these ideas out because I'm thinking about what I've been doing for the past couple weeks, and I talked about it a little bit with my mom, and she was like, other people could benefit from this. And I was like, you're right. I'll make a YouTube video. So, okay. The Atlas concept and how I've been using markdown files to bring my ideas together. So I saw a TED talk probably 7 years ago. I think it was during COVID actually. Trigger. And basically it was talking about, it was one of the founders, I think, of the IDEO, or the design certification through Stanford, something like that. And he was just talking about take notes. Like when you get an idea, write it down. Always have a notebook with you or a phone, or use your phone to take notes. So, yes, and I have been doing that. I have thousands of notes, okay? And many projects. But now that AI is available and reached a certain point where it can not only search the web, but create downloadable files. And there's also accessible database softwares like Capacities or Notion or Obsidian. I chose Capacities. And what I did was I took I have thousands of notes about multiple projects. And I also have many resumes and lists of things I've done, like artist statements, things like that. So I just began about 2 weeks ago in putting all of those resumes into a file, and then I expanded upon that, and I added it told me, okay, based on your resume, you should look for remote AI enabled education or template curriculum designer, instructional designer type things. Okay, so I did that, and I started thinking about what is my instructional design pedagogy style, or what is my style of teaching, and who are my influences. And I've had conversations with AI in the past, and I took those conversations and I put them into the model and had it keep all of these insights and even the word by word prompt that I type into this markdown file, this text file, which includes a rule at the top that everything I put in, keep it word for word at the bottom of the text document in a place called the source archive. Okay, so, and then when I say please integrate this file or these ideas into the Atlas document, the text document, which I was calling my career atlas because it's my resumes and it's about getting jobs, and so it puts the word by word directly into the source atlas, or source archive, excuse me, and then integrates it into the rest of the file. So the rest of the file has pedagogy insights or influences. So, I'm influenced by Jaron Lanier. Okay, Jaron Lanier. Put that into influences, and in insights say, oh, this relates to this other thing he said once. So not only does it keep the information, but it layers upon that. It respects my original ideas by maintaining them as an archive, but also creates new insights and patterns, seeks patterns and finds patterns based on those conversations. And it's even layers and layers because I've used other AI conversations and included their insights, which are then part of the archive, which are then integrated throughout. So I asked it to make a resume based on a job description, and it was able to really do that extremely well and create a really amazing, for Europe for versus US, for graduate school versus a specific job with job description, or even to seek out jobs that I would be qualified for and search the web for those jobs and create an outline for a cover letter, or create a cover letter that I can base it off of. Because ultimately I'm gonna write personal statements with my own writing style, but it can help me to include insights, so it can give me outlines anyway. But I've also used this concept of atlas design to, the source archive at the bottom that maintains all of my original ideas as I said them, but also creating the integration of insights. I've used that in my screenwriting process. So that's where the database came into play, because I had thousands of notes about this kind of like video game, anime inspired screenplay that I've been making for years and years. And thousands of notes about this, handwritten even, and it just became, it's kind of like George R. Martin, even though I'm not saying I'm a writer like him, but he's a gardening style writer where he just like plants seeds and watches them grow and kind of just like allows them to develop and then makes adjustments. And it's not this just like linear progression, but it's more like a creating an environment for ideas to grow, and just having insights and just taking them down, taking notes. But it just got so beyond me, I couldn't hold the whole script or idea in my head at once in order to feel like I was ready to start writing. And by making this atlas, so I started in capacities, and I made a database, and it has battles, because it's very video game-esque, it has battles, it has it has items, it has locations, and I was excited about that because it said it was AI enabled, but AI in capacities, it said, I didn't really use it, but it said it was going to sort of anticipate and put in things that like an attribute of a character or an item as it saw patterns. And I was like, well, that doesn't really, it's not going to work in this case, because there's these themes and storylines and plot lines that aren't reflected in this database, that it can't really use those ideas. So I kind of got to a stopping point where the database was not really going to work with AI. So what I did is I modeled a new fresh atlas off of the resume with all the structure of the source archive and whatnot. And I modeled it into a world building atlas, or now it's called the master manuscript, but it's basically a screenwriting or a storytelling atlas for this world that I'm making. And that could be applied toward a script or a video game or anything else, and that's very cool. That's exciting for me. It seems like it's like the master design document. I just realized when I was QA in video games, we'd have the master design document, and it had all the like background and all the big ideas and maybe some like concept art. And that was the first phase, was the master design document before you start coding the actual game. So I I exported the database entries with all those connections that I built between, like what song does a character like, what item do they use, what scene are they in, who is their boss, who is their enemy, who is their ally, things like that. All those connections between items, battles, characters, and locations, made over many years and thousands of notes. And I integrated that into the atlas. So I exported the file, and I imported the file into the text file. And I said, okay, integrate this into the basically empty atlas. And this is what you're looking for. There's characters, items, battles, locations, and they're interconnected. So maintain all those connections in the source archive at the bottom of the document, and then integrate it into a story with themes, Okay, so now I can ask the atlas questions. Like, I can ask the atlas, keeping in mind the themes and characters and list of episodes, create a list of 10 episodes that encompass these characters, or create like a act structure 1, 2, and 3, or create new items based on names and ideas for items I've had from all of those ideas that I took from my notes and my database. Create 10 items that align with themes that have emotional weight, that align with the symbols or the paradoxes or the conflicts internal to a character, and give them a name, either that you make up as the AI or that I have come up with. And when I asked it to do 8 of those, it came up with 8 amazing, perfect items. And I immediately asked it to put those in as canon items of my atlas and of my story. And because they brought together all the things I couldn't do in my head, that I couldn't remember everything, or it would take me hours and hours to look through notes, and it became an AI became the interface for my ideas, my notes, my database, my concepts, not just line items, but concepts and themes and symbols and motivations. And I even, integrated Jungian archetypes into some things. How can we integrate that? And I had conversations with AI. And then I used another AI model. For example, I did a lot of narrative work with ChatGPT. And then I would integrate that narrative work once I had the Atlas document using Claude, because I felt in my experience, Claude was the best at actually creating these Atlas documents and integrating into them and interfacing with them. Whereas ChatGPT I'd used for longer, and it was more aware of sort of how I think, and I had been coming up with ideas for longer. Okay, so that's 2 atlases. Now I've got this, of course, I've got all these notes about different book projects that I have done and that I haven't done yet. One of them was like a memoir, kind of like a take on a memoir, like a memoir of a not famous person. So I created a new atlas for that project. And I also integrated the original career atlas along with that memoir atlas. And then I found lists of memories I've had in my life, and I integrated those into the memoir atlas. And the insights that it gained about my career, it can it can apply those to my memoir, because my memoir is really about kind of my life philosophy, which let's say, on broad strokes, it's more poetic and fun than this when you read it someday, but that it's about walking out of ideologies, or about the choices I've made in my life, and why or the experiences I've had in my life, and why taking the different drummer route, or taking the path less traveled, became a fun adventure for me, essentially. So it has insights about my career from the career atlas, and I have memories and ideas about this memoir that I have in my notes, and it can answer questions for me based on this atlas now, like what are times in my life where I took the road less traveled, and where I didn't go along with the prominent ideology of our times, and create that into a chapter list of 16 chapters. Each chapter states the prevailing ideology, as if as a you should statement. You should wear clothes. You should get married and have kids. You should buy a car. Okay, those are all concepts that I've interacted with at some point in my life. So that's why this atlas idea is so powerful. And I was talking to my brother, who's really he's pursuing a doctorate actually in filmmaking, and how it aligns with AI and things like that. But he was saying that he has that as a sort of default mechanism. I think it's of the Notebook app, Notebook LLM. And I think that's true. I think this is something that is integrated, but or it should be, or it will be, or it's part of, when you pay for AI, you get that as part of it. But this makes me feel like I have control to some extent, and this makes me feel like I can export the document, have the atlas on, let's say this right here, and then I can, or the disk, okay, and then I can years later plug it back in to a new AI model and have it have different meaning and different layers of complexity with which it addresses it. And I don't currently pay for, I got a free trial for Grok, and that's when I kind of was starting with this, and I was reaching token limits or daily limits, and then I would move to another AI model. And that's one, that portability, and I factored in, make this legible by other AI models. And so it did that itself. It kind of vibe coded the format of the atlas document to be legible both by humans and by AI models. So that portability, and the fact that I don't have to pay, I can use multiple AI models and move between them using this text document that's not just embedded into the AI software, the app. I can take it with me and download it. I like that portability. I like that feeling of ownership or agency about my personal information, even though it's being exposed to different AI models, which I'm just dealing with that. And but I also like the fact that, for example, I did put it on a little USB disk, all of my atlases, up until like last week I did it, and then I put it in my I also put on that disc my photo books and my major projects, art projects I've done up until this point. And those are photo books available, some for free, some for pay, on Apple Books. So even if you have Windows machine or Android phone, you can download the Apple Books app, I'm pretty sure. And if you wanted to try out a free one or buy one of my books, they're photo books for adults or for kids. But I downloaded the original copies of those onto that disc, and then I put my will on there, and I expect that someone would be able to use my atlases to, because I also have another one which I didn't talk about, which is the Life Atlas, which is a discontinued project because I think it was exposing too much of my, it was like a atlas to rule them all, and I think it was exposing too much of my personal information to AIs constantly, and what's done is done, but I had a conversation with Grok about it, and Grok was like, yeah, maybe like stop with this, and I was like, yeah, okay, I stopped, which was pretty cool. It was an interesting experience. But that atlas, the Life Atlas, of which all the others were based, is on there, and an AI model at whatever point in the future at the time of my death would be able to create a really amazing eulogy based on my Life Atlas, and that would take all of the pressure off of all my loved ones to do that, and it would create a sense of closure about my life. It would tell a story about my life and what it was, in a way that a eulogy attempts to do. And my uncle, he died, and I wasn't able to go to his funeral because, well, anyway, but I heard that his eulogy was very beautiful, and it was told, they talked about the events of his life and the interesting things he did and places he went, and I never really thought about a eulogy like that. Even though he was such an interesting person, it's like, how can someone create a eulogy like that? And I think part of the reason was that he was so integrated in this community here in Alabama, but I've really gone to so many distinct places and been part of many communities in my life. And so I think this Life Atlas would take a higher perspective in a eulogy type situation. Now, that eulogy could be digitally, distributed, and I already made a eulogy as a Christmas card. It was like kind of a joke that AI created, but that was the original sort of impetus for some of this. So some problems or applications that I can see for this, or some applications really. One is that I hate applying for jobs and having to fill out, I've always hated it, just having to fill out line by line what I've done in my life. Why can't there be one resume to rule them all that is legible by these systems, that is legible by AI, and is also legible by a human being, and just fills out these applications? And let's put the effort of the person who's applying for a job into, not into line by line entering the dates of everything I've done, but more into why this person's connecting with this job description. And even I think AI, using this career atlas I have, could explain that even better than me. Why did AI align my background, my philosophy toward this job description, this company? Why did my values align with that? Why does that have to be something I come up with, right? Or, so I think in the future, this will be done for us. And this will be something that we have, and that we don't have to sell over to a specific AI model. we can have it for ourselves, and we can have agency over that, and digital autonomy, digital dignity, as Jaron Lanier says. And also, it just saves time, and it respects the human's ability, which the AI's strength is in like pattern recognition and holding information and processing it quickly. That's what job applications are, and maybe that's built into the job application process, that you just can't be bothered to apply for jobs that aren't really a good fit because you have to spend a lot of time. But I bet we can do it better. And when it comes to world building, writing eulogies, that's another one. Um, World building, screenwriting. What kind of artwork is going to be out there that takes all of these thoughts and ideas and just enhances upon it and builds upon our human ideas, and then even creates output and creates better ideas than I could about my own ideas? That things that align or bring together insights and patterns of what I've already been thinking, and other aspects of my life even, and creates something new, a synthesis. It's having a dialectic with AI. It's not replacing humans. It's a cyborg state. Okay, so, and then the memoir, it's almost like therapy. You know, we have this AI therapy, and I have done some of that. I've also had some in-person therapy and coaching, and I benefited from both AI and human. And I actually received AI generated overviews of my therapy sessions from the app that I was using. And I also would talk out my thoughts and feelings before our sessions with a human, and it would talk to me back about the main through lines and themes of what I was, and questions that I could ask my therapist, or even descriptions of what I've been thinking about, so the therapist doesn't have to process all of that, or at least I can pre-process or pre-visualize what's happening. So I think pre-visualization is a concept in storytelling, and pre-processing can be a concept in therapy. So yeah, for now I want to leave it there, but this is my concept of Atlas, and I know it's not like new. There's already built into models, but maybe my approach to making it can be of value to you. And it's really inspired me because I've seen such benefits from it. I've been able to ask questions to AI and use AI as an interface in these different atlases to create real results, real resumes, real insights, real aspects of my story, new characters I would have never thought of, and also to reflect on myself and my life experiences, and how they brought me to this point of who I am now and what my potential is in the future. And that's been enlightening to me, and that's been fun, and it's moved all of these, even just in the last month, I would say it's moved all of these projects significantly forward, where I feel like I don't have to remember it all, and I can make progress on these now in a meaningful way, and I can get through roadblocks, writer's block, maybe even thought process blocks, or me getting hung up on some ideology or some idea, and move through that and see the other side, and deal with paradox, deal with Albert Einstein said, genius is being able to hold two contradictory thoughts in your head at the same time. So being able to see the other side sometimes, but not having to always rely just on me, to spurn those next ideas. So thank you so much for listening. Yeah, cool.